Hello YouTube. In the following video, I will be demonstrating my presentation on coastal infrastructure and rising sea levels. Let's begin. Damage of rising sea levels. The image shown here is an image depicting what sea levels can cause to communities. Here's another example also. It causes a lot of flooding and damage. Potential risk. Rising sea levels have major impacts on communities. Even a small increase can cause some unpleasant damage to coastal habitats on the shoreline, and even farther inland, such as destructive erosion, wetland flooding, aquifer and agricultural contamination, damaged and lost ecosystems for many animal species. The higher sea levels have also been contributors to stronger and more dangerous hurricanes and typhoons. These storm surges can cause high casualties every year and lots of damage to homes and communities. The sea levels also pose a risk for future floods inland that put many people in these areas in fear, most of which would consider migration farther inland. The path rising sea levels will take can also pose threats to internet access. Scientists mapped out a grid of internet infrastructure in the United States and layered them with maps showing the path rising sea levels will take. They predict soon these major pieces of internet infrastructure will be underwater, disconnecting many people from the rest of the world. Main cause of rising sea levels. The rising sea levels we face today occur from three primary reasons. 1. Thermal expansion. What this factor represents is that when waters heat up, they expand, taking up more space in the ocean. Number 2. Glacial melting. Many glaciers are melting at a certain pace due to warming of the earth, causing more water to be released into the ocean. Although naturally these glaciers melt, they are balanced out by winter seasons with the help of snow. But more recently, studies have shown that rising global temperatures have led to above average melting of glaciers in the summer and less snow as winter is pushed back and early springs are becoming more frequent. The imbalance of these factors causes sea levels to rise. Third and final reason is melting of Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets. Just like the glaciers have these huge ice sheets are also melting due to higher global temperatures. The meltwater on the surface of these ice sheets are now beginning to seep through and make its way into seawater. Since 1992 to 2001, these ice sheets have seen significant ice loss, with Greenland losing about 247 billion tons and Antarctica losing up to 199 billion tons of ice. In this slide, I'll be showing a graph of global sea levels. In this graph, what we can see is an upward trend of these rising sea levels, which is not good for us in the future. Explanation of previous graph. In the graph from the previous slide depicting global sea levels, we can see just how much the problem is arising. Since 1880, our global sea levels have experienced growth of about 8 to 9 inches, with most of that coming in more recent years due to the melting of glaciers, ice sheets, and as well as thermal expansion of seawater as it starts to warm more and more. And as recently as 2020, we have seen a record annual average of about 3.6 inches in our satellite record, which has begun measurements since 1993 to the present day. It's projected that we will have about 1 foot of sea levels above those of the 2000s, even if we lower our greenhouse gas emissions. Importance of rising sea levels. The importance of rising sea levels is crucial as it affects us more than you think. In the United States of America, about 40% of the population live among these coastlines, where the sea levels cause dangerous events such as flooding, shoreline erosion, and major storm surges. The people living in these areas face a great danger from the rising sea levels. They'll experience more damage inland from storms such as hurricanes. These massive storms will also cause damage to the infrastructure needed by the people for local jobs and normal necessities. The importance of recognizing this issue will allow us to discover a solution and educate people from all over the world to contribute. Finding a way to prevent these inland floods can save a nation's economy from pouring money into rebuilding infrastructure, and will not slow down production. needed for economic growth. The destruction of inland facilities and infrastructure like roads will make local businesses lose a lot of money, and in turn, people will be out of work and won't be able to provide for their loved ones. The rising sea levels can cause seawater to seep into people's drinking water. Now the issue is affecting people's standard of living, making it harder for them to receive the basic human needs they need to survive. It is vital that we make this a concern and look for methods to prevent damage caused by storm surges and floods so that others like you and me can live their lives with more ease, growing without the growing fear of rising sea levels. What can we do to prevent further damage? In my opinion, I believe strongly in the pursuit of coastal infrastructure to prevent further damage from the rising sea levels. Some coastal cities have already taken into consideration future plans to assess the issue with ideas ranging from large walls, flood resilient roads, and ways to use vegetation to absorb water. These methods are just some that can be really beneficial in the long run. Natural infrastructure is a cost effective way to protect shoreline communities from the storm surges, and especially flooding. By making beaches longer, we can stop the amount of water trying to reach homes while still maintaining the beaches for the public to enjoy. Also, the natural structures can include barrier islands, oyster and coral reefs, mangroves, seagrass, as well as salt marshes to absorb the incoming storm surges. These things also stimulate the natural overall environment for the people of habitats of this community. Oh. In New York, there is a $335 million plan to build a seawall on the coast about 5 or 6 feet high to reduce the amount of flooding. Old seawalls will also be rebuilt to help the city from losing millions due to damage caused by flooding. More methods of coastal infrastructure include upgrading sewage systems to prevent the salt water from breaking septic tanks, causing sewage to spill out, leading to health hazards for the public. The upgraded sewage systems will prevent the storm water from seeping into pipes, protecting the health of the community. Raising roads is also a good method as it can drain water and reduce tidal flooding. In Miami specifically, they plan on raising their roads by 2 feet to prevent the flood water from entering homes, stores, etc. Stormwater pumps are implemented to vacuum up the water and release it back into the sea. These methods can be costly now, but are necessary and will save coastal cities lots of money in the future. And to wrap up my whole presentation, I'll be discussing the conclusion. By pursuing the methods of coastal infrastructure, as I discussed in the previous slides, and by changing our carbon footprints and reducing our emissions of greenhouse gases, we can prevent further damage from rising sea levels. We can save lots of lives and money. Reducing our emissions will not only prevent the rise of sea levels, but prevent many other dangerous events caused by global climate change. It's up to us to make a difference to save the world from looking like the image shown here. And with that, this is the last slide of my presentation. All the sources cited that I've used to make this presentation. And thank you for listening.